Oh, hello there. Welcome to my twisted mind. My name is Kirk. I use they, them pronouns, and today I'm going to be talking about my life story. It sounds so strange to be putting it this way, and I admit I'm a little distracted because I got a new sort of streaming setup, and I just want to make sure that it's working. And I'm a little distracted and a little frazzled because I was putting on makeup before this, and it was just not going well. I was fighting with my lipstick, and I had to redo it a million times. Um, but yeah, I wanted to do this because, like I said in the description, like the prompt of a new moon in Leo, uh, it resonates with a lot of what I've been going through personally and wanting to express myself fully and vulnerably without hiding from people. So this stream, like I hope that people do get something out of it. People who watch, even if it's small. But this is mostly for me. This is mostly something I'm doing for myself to really just like openly speak the truth about my life and be honest with myself about what what has happened in it. So yeah, there is like a content warning. I am going to be talking about drugs and alcohol a little bit, and again, like it says in the description, not to glorify them, but neither is it going to be sort of like a narrative that you see on TV of like addiction and redemption either. Um, we are really only get shown stories of drugs and alcohol when it pertains to addiction, or as like a carefree, like it doesn't matter, like whatever. Those are sort of the stories we see, and that's like such a strange binary because um, it's not the way for me at least. It's been is like neither of those are exactly true. Um, so yeah, so I'm going to be talking a little bit about that, and I'll mention it again as I do. Yeah, so my name is Kirk. Um, you know me. Uh, maybe you know me. Maybe this is your first time seeing me. I was born on August 3rd, 1990, in Irvine, California. I am a Leo Sun, Gemini Rising, Capricorn Moon, which has been interesting. I'm in the middle of my Saturn return right now, and that has been interesting. It's been challenging, but um, I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed like learning and growing, and I do feel like it's brought a lot into my life, a lot of good energy and a lot of changes. Um, yeah, so I was born in Irvine, California. I lived in Westchester by the LAX airport until I was 4.5. During that time, I attended a daycare, the B'nai B'rith, which was a Jewish daycare. My family is not Jewish, but they sent me there anyway. I think it probably was just in the neighborhood and close and a good school or whatever. Learned about Hanukkah, the true story of Hanukkah, and dreidel games. It wasn't like a religious teaching was imposed on me in any way, but that's sort of just like that was the curriculum that they had. Um, but it was cool. I had a friend there. I made like my first ever friend, Jason. We do not keep in touch. I don't remember this person at all. Not a lot. Not a lot to say about the time that I lived in Southern California. Um, I was so young. My very, very, very first memory is being in our kitchen and just the sunlight streaming in through the windows, and it was just so golden and orange and bright in there. That's like the strongest memory I have from that time. Um, when I was 4.5, my family moved to Oregon. Um, it's a little strange. I mean, it's not strange, but it's like our whole family, like my mom's side and my dad's side, all um, grew up in Southern California, and that's where they all were basically, except for one. My dad's sister moved to NorCal, San Jose. Um, But aside from her and her family, everyone, every single person in our family lived in Southern California. And when I was really young, I remember my grandparents coming over to take care of me while my mom and dad were at work. I don't know. Yeah, I just like have vague recollections of being with them in our house. Nothing really specific, but I do remember them coming over to take care of me in that time. I guess we moved to Oregon because my dad got a job at some company up there. He was and is an accountant. He currently uh, runs a small accounting firm, like a literally like four people, and it's like an accountant consultancy programming. I'm not really sure what it is exactly. It's something that has to do with accounting software. But yeah, so he got a job up in Oregon with something related to that, with something related to accounting, and so we moved and we lived in Clackamas, Oregon, which is a suburb of Portland. It is, I don't know how far away it is, but it's like a sort of strange town that's divided by a freeway. And on one side, it's like super, super hilly, and we actually lived in a house on those hills. Um, I remember there was this long patch of undeveloped land right at the back of our house. Like our house like went out. We had like a yard area or like part, I don't know, like something that was like on the property line. You don't think about that shit when you're a kid. But like without a fence, without anything, there was just also this like large like hilly tract of undeveloped land. It was really beautiful actually. It was green in the summers. I don't really remember it in the winters, but it was green then too, aside from snow, because Oregon is very wet. Um, yeah, and I remember my mom would pay me, I think, a nickel a rock to go out into what we called, it was called the Greenway, and collect these tiny rocks. I had a bucket, and I would just like spend all day filling it with rocks. I'm sure that was just to give me something to do to keep me occupied, but yeah, it's a memory that sticks with me, and just the memory of that area. You know, you could walk. Like one time, I walked to a friend's house, like someone I knew in elementary school, just going down that sort of like grassy but not tree filled greenway, and it was really incredible actually looking back on it now that it wasn't developed. That I guess like the way that they had structured the neighborhood there, it's like would be hard. Like you couldn't put a street there, like a street and houses wouldn't fit there. So it was just this sort of like space that I don't know. It might still be there that way. I wouldn't know. I haven't been there in years. But yeah, so I lived in Clackamas from the age of 5 to the age of 10. I went to Jesus. I don't remember what elementary school, but it was just, like what I do remember about it is that it was like an elementary school that had multiple floors, and the library was like front and center. I really, really remember this library. You like would go down some stairs that had windows into the like tall ceilinged library. It's not like the stacks were crazy tall because of course they couldn't have that. It's an elementary school. Kids would get hurt. But yeah, I just remember like coming down the stairs from like from like where you enter the school. You actually enter the school on the top floor because it was built into the side of a hill, and like the following floors would go down. Yeah, I really really remember that library. For some reason, it's what stands out to me. Um, I remember every day I would take the bus to school, and a lot of the times I would do my homework on the bus because I hadn't done it the night before or whatever. And I just remember like finishing it as quickly as I could because I didn't want to waste any time doing homework. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that fits into anything. I remember being told that I was so smart if only I applied myself, and stuff like that. Uh, Gosh, I'm getting really nervous all of a sudden, to be totally frank with you. This is so different than just like speaking what's on top of my mind, is like trying to construct a narrative out of my life. There is no narrative. When we first moved to Oregon, I went to an evangelical preschool and daycare. My family is not evangelicals, and in this case, I was absolutely indoctrinated into Christianity. There was no question about it. It was not an option. It was not open. We had lessons about Christian stories, reenacting, Christian stories. There's one moment that I really, really strongly remember, which is when I was like, I don't know, maybe like 6 or something. One of the administrators of the daycare took our group of kids, and we went over to some window in the church, looking out on like a construction site nearby. And this is the story that that person told me, the administrator. Every day there's a girl who swings from a playset that's like right over there by the construction site. Every single day she does that. But today, for no reason at all, she didn't come. She didn't swing there that day. And today, a hammer from the construction site went flying right through where that girl always swings. And even at the time, I remember thinking, this is bullshit. This person is lying to me. And the moral of the story is like, thank God. That's what I didn't mention that, but the moral of the story is thank God. Thank God that girl wasn't there today. Thank God she didn't die. It's God. God is responsible for saving this girl's life. And I just remember it just like didn't add up. It made no sense at all. It's like there's so many problems, but this person, I don't know, like maybe someone else did believe it. It's like 6-year-old children are super, super impressionable. And I don't know, like maybe someone did believe, maybe someone who's more prone to belief in Christianity was willing to believe that, but it just didn't make sense. It's like, how could you know that the hammer would go through right where the girl was swinging? How would you know that it's like the same time, the same place? It's like, so there's so many stupid variables that just like, it just doesn't add up. And yeah, I don't know, that story stands out to me a lot, but apparently like I was actually literally indoctrinated into Christianity. I don't remember this, but apparently the first Halloween that we were there living in Oregon, I refused to dress up. I refused to dress up for Halloween because it's satanic to do so. And when my mom ended up taking me out to get candy in the neighborhood, not dressed up, I don't know what I was actually wearing. When my mom took me through the neighborhood to get dressed up, I apparently was pointing at other children who had dressed up and saying that they are going to hell, because, you know, they're worshiping Satan by getting dressed up for Halloween. So fun stuff that's like in my brain right now, that's forever in my brain because it was impressed into me at a young age. Gosh, yeah. So that was a weird experience, and I think after that, my parents decided to move me into a different daycare. I went to this like random daycare called Children's World, which is like a bunch of other kids. I spent a lot of time in Children's World, actually. Like I was in Children's World every day after school for the entire time that I lived in Oregon. And I was there all summer too because my parents worked. Yeah, it was a really strange, I don't know, is it a strange experience to be in a daycare? I don't know if it's that strange of an experience, but it's like, daycares are, I don't know, other kids they're strange. I don't know how to put it. But I was definitely, I think there's like a lot of sort of like issues that I have that began in that daycare. Like I remember distinctly this one time someone was, shoot. Uh-oh. Wow, I just realized... Is my camera working? Ugh. Okay. My bad, y'all. Wow. Uh, anyway. I'm gonna be honest with you. I am not feeling super great about this stream, but I am gonna finish it just because I don't like leaving things unfinished, and I think it would be really strange and unpleasant and unfair to promise something, even just to myself, and not really deliver on it. I don't know why I'm so uncomfortable right now, actually. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, so like there was this one time that a kid told me I was like a bad luck charm. Like he kept losing some game while I was like nearby. Um, that's just like some shit that like sticks in your head forever, you know. And kids don't realize that. Um, oh. Y'all, thanks in the chat. Um, by the way, like the video is like much there's a lot of latency because I'm shooting at a higher whatever. Um, but thank you for saying that. I don't know, I just feel weird today. Um, let's see. Yeah, I don't have a lot of strong memories from Oregon. It's where I learned how to ride a bike. My mom took me to the parking lot of a mall, which was always empty. It's like this huge, massive parking lot that was always empty. And I learned how to bike there. And I was learning how to bike because we were moving to California. And my mom was like really insistent that I learn how to ride a bike before we move back. Yeah, and that was cool. I mean, I love riding bikes, so hooray. Um, Geez, I feel so weird. I should stop saying that probably. When I was 7, my sibling was born. I was staying with a family and friends while my mom was in the hospital giving birth. And I remember coming to the hospital and seeing them for the first time and holding them in my arms, and I know you're watching. But yeah, it was a really interesting experience, and I remember feeling so worried that I was going to hurt them, that I was going to drop them or something, and I was terrified that I would do something wrong that would cause damage, and thankfully I didn't. But at the same time, I really wanted to experience that feeling of like, I don't know. It's like weird when you're 7 years old. It's like it's like such a strange age to be, and have a sibling. All of a sudden, it's like you're old enough to understand. You're still really young. Yeah, so that was a really interesting experience to go from being an only child to having a sibling at the age of 7, and we weren't very close for the first 3 years of their life, and not that we were like that much closer after that, but I say 3 years because after when I was 10 and they were 3, we moved down to California, to Northern California. Again, actually, I think this time my dad like knew his company was going under, the same company that he had like moved up there for to be at in the first place. And what he did was, I think, like take a bunch of his clients and like start a new business, which is now the one that he is currently still working in NorCal for some reason. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why NorCal. I know that we picked the town I grew up in, for the most part, Pleasanton, because it had good schools, and it's like safe or whatever. Um, and this is like where we're getting to the juicy part, because like I definitely started having a lot more fun, and a lot more tribulations once we moved to Pleasanton. Um, yeah. So like we moved down to Pleasanton when I was 10 years old. So I got 1 year of elementary school in NorCal. Of course, I missed the year of like local history, where they in California they teach you about the missions and all the stuff like that. In Oregon, we learned about the Oregon Trail in fourth grade. So none of that information was applicable to my life anymore, and I've forgotten all of it. The Oregon Trail doesn't matter. Um, I don't know. I'm making jokes because I'm still a little anxious. Um, let's see. Yeah, I had it was difficult to move down at that age. I think like moving up to Oregon when I was 5 wasn't that big of a deal. Like my friendships were not that close. It was easy to make more friends. But moving back down, moving again at the age of 10, after I had already solidified a couple friendships, I knew a lot of people in Oregon, and now I was moving somewhere where at the age of 10 I didn't know anybody. And what ended up happening was that there was another kid who had moved there in that same year, and we sort of like bonded over it. He had moved from Washington, I think, so it was like we had a sort of similar story, similar interests, and we became really close friends to the point of where people would think we were brothers. All that year, we were really close, and we actually didn't stay friends after elementary school. I think he thought that I was like trying too hard to be cool, when in reality I was trying to make friends. Yeah, but our paths diverged. I think, putting on a bit of an artifice because I wanted to be cool. Um, so maybe he was right. Because it ended up being it ended up being like he ended up hanging out with a bunch of kids who would play like Magic the Gathering and Yu-Gi-Oh and stuff at lunch, and I was like, I'm way cooler than that. I don't. It's like, fuck that shit. Even though I did really enjoy Magic the Gathering, I never played Yu-Gi-Oh. But yeah, I thought it was super uncool to do that stuff, so I did end up like trying to find some other friends in middle school, and I ended up becoming friends quickly, in a strange way, with a couple people who were like some of the cool kids in my elementary school, and like becoming friends with them, becoming friends with a couple other people. I don't know how this group like assembled. Actually, it assembled really quickly in the first few weeks of school, and maybe it's because we were all in band together. A lot of us were saxophonists, some of us were trumpets. I don't know how, but we became friends really quickly, and enemies just as quickly. I wish I were joking, but this is something that I don't really regret because it was so long ago, and it's like I've forgiven myself for acting foolishly in the middle school. But what happened was, like right at the beginning of the school year, one of the people I was friends with, one of the guys I was friends with, asked the group if anyone else was interested in this particular girl, and I did also have a crush on her, but I said no. I didn't. So I lied to my group of new friends, and consequences came thereafter, because I was also very romantic and idealistic. I'm a lovesick fool at heart, truly. And what happened was like literally not even a week after this, I think it was like so shortly after I lied about saying that I had a crush on this girl, what I did was I passed a note to her, asking her out, in band during sixth grade band, and what happened was that the three people I passed that note through all looked at it and laughed before it got to her. And then of course she said no. Not of course, but like she said no. So that for me was like a really humiliating moment in middle school. And one of the people who had looked at the note was the person who had asked if I had had a crush on this girl. So that really, it established me as like a liar, and someone they couldn't trust. And I think in the way of like middle school and in the way of like children, I became sort of the easy target for bullying. Um, like especially with young boys, and this is like partially like a byproduct of society, and partially just a byproduct of the way like children are. Especially when it comes to young boys, it's like there's always a target in the friend group. That's how it feels, at least. And I was a really easy target because I lied, because I think it's like not just because I lied, but it's because like because I wasn't enough of like, I didn't value myself enough to be honest. And that's sort of like a strange thing, because that's a really like emotionally complex and mature thing for other 11-year-olds to pick up on. And I think they did pick up on it, but not that they would be able to put it into words. But I became a target of bullying by them, and I just remember that oh my gosh, I'm getting like all mixed up. This is narrative arc who. Yeah, so like I actually was a bit of a pathological liar at that age. I grew up in a really, really strict household, and I'm not using that as an excuse, but I didn't have a lot of self-esteem, and I didn't feel very valued or worthwhile, and so I would lie in order to fit in. And again, this, like, here's a really easy lesson: fucking tell the truth, don't lie, admit ignorance, do not lie. Because like there were multiple times. There's another time I remember I lied about being into a band, or like understanding a reference that I did not understand. Just being like, yeah, that's cool. And then it turns out it's like it wasn't a reference. It was something that my friend had just made up, and so like everyone like knew again that like I was lying to try to be liked. I think that it was like really that sort of made me that sort of target for bullying. But like for all of middle school, I did not really have friends. I would sit at lunch with people who would mock me. They called me Pooh Bear, after Winnie the Pooh, and in line with being the target of the group. Of course, I was the only one with a nickname. No one else had nicknames, so it was like a really derogatory thing. It was really insulting. They would like shit on me, call me names, and like when you're in middle school, like, and a boy, and it's 2001, like the worst thing that can happen to you is being called gay, or like the slurred versions of that word, and that happened frequently to me. And it's not like they were picking up on my queerness or anything and like trying to help me out. It was like, it's like just like, like the F word is the worst word you can say, and calling someone gay is the worst insult you could make. That's like the mindset, and that happened a lot. But was strange and sort of like something that has been difficult for me to deal with is just like one-on-one with any of those people who treated me badly, who called me names, who degraded me. They were all super chill with me. It's like literally like put me in a room with just one of them, and like everything's good. We're friends. It was only when others were watching that they had to attack me the way that they did. And I am at a point where I can forgive that behavior. I think it's shitty. I don't think it's good, and I'm not like gonna praise people who act that way, or like or say that it's okay for kids to act that way. But like they did it out of their own insecurities, and they did it out of their own fears, and they did it because I had made myself a target, because I didn't respect myself, because I didn't because I wasn't honest with them, and for other reasons. But yeah, so all like middle school, like I didn't have any friends, and I was extremely isolated. There actually, although that's not entirely true. There was one person who was like kind of my friend, but who I wouldn't really hang out with because boys didn't hang out with girls in middle school, unless you were dating or whatever. But I had a friend who was a girl, and she and I would hang out in the mornings, before class. Sometimes we like lived in the same neighborhood, and we didn't carpool. I don't know how we ended up hanging out in the first place. But yeah, I was actually friends with a few different girls, in middle school, that I was just friends with, that I wasn't like I didn't have any romantic aspirations with. And I remember being like so, it was always so strange to me that guys and girls just like weren't friends. Like it was just like such a thing that like boys would never be friends with girls, and like vice versa. In middle school especially, but obviously that never ends. You know, there aren't really a lot of examples in our society of men and women actually being friends with each other the way that individual genders are, with I don't know, with themselves. I don't know. I don't want to like, I'm like getting a little bit off track, but yeah, she was a friend of mine, and I guess in the interest of full honesty, I should talk about this sort of like strange incident that happened to me. That was a really upsetting moment for me. Like there was like another person that I was kind of friends with. We were actually like sort of close, but not really. We only really like talked online. We never hung out in person. They went to my school. They were also a girl, and there was one school dance that I went to where I slow danced with a bunch of girls, and it turns out that I guess oh shoot. Oh no. Thank you for telling me. I'm fixing the camera now. It takes a while to warm up. I don't know why. Ugh. Damn. This experiment is not going according... Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. I'll try to... I guess it falls asleep after a little while. Wow, right in the middle of like a really dramatic moment. Anyway, so there was this school dance where I danced with a bunch of girls, and I do not recall doing anything inappropriate. And in my memory, in my mind, in the heart of my heart, I did not feel like I did anything inappropriate. I did not feel like it sounds like I'm being defensive, but I'm not. I'm just like trying to tell you that honestly, in the innocent heart of a 12-year-old, I did not realize I was doing anything wrong. But apparently a bunch of the girls that I danced with thought that my hands were going too low, that I was like trying to touch their butts. And because of that, I actually lost this really close friend of mine, this close girlfriend who I was talking with online. And like there was just sort of like no recourse for it. I just remember it just felt so unfair. And I'm not saying this is a really complex thing, right? Like I don't want to invalidate the what these girls felt, and like maybe my hands were lower than they should have been, and maybe I should have been more aware of that or more cognizant of it, but I wasn't. And it's just like really frustrating and shitty to lose a close friend because of this thing that I, in my heart of hearts, did not even know that I was doing. Yeah, I don't know how that reads to y'all. But again, like I said at the beginning, this isn't for you. Although I hope you are enjoying listening to this and learning a little bit about me, but this is for me, and I have to be honest about the situation because it happened, and I don't want to erase the fact that it did happen. But yeah, so because of that, I went into high school with 0 friends. No one wanted to be my friend, and that sucked. And I remember like thinking that the space between middle school and high school was like an opportunity for me to improve my life, because I had spent all of those 3 years hanging out with the people who called me Pooh Bear, who treated me like I was less than human. I spent every single day of school with those people. And I really, really, really couldn't take it anymore. I did not want that for me. It was too much pain. I was fucking depressed already in middle school. I remember the first time I had suicidal thoughts was when I was like 12 years old. I guess like bury the lead there. I'm just seeing the comment now. Thank you, Bread Senpai, for saying that. It's like, it's not really easy. It's not easy at all to talk about that stuff. Jeez. But yeah. But going into high school, I put together a whole new look. But seriously, I let my hair grow out, and I had spent all summer sewing patches onto this jean jacket that I had. It was a jean jacket. God, I hope it's still somewhere. I hope my parents are keeping it. But it's a jean jacket with a bunch of patches of like classic rock bands, AC/DC, Iron Maiden. I think I had a Beatles patch. There's like a lot of different stuff, and I took, you know, those stud belts. They used to sell them at Hot Topic with like 3 rows of studs on them. I took all of the studs out of those. I like used screwdriver or whatever to unhook all of the hinges of those, and I've re-put that back into my jacket. So I had this like dope like rock and roll jacket, and that's what I wore to the first day of band camp. And band camp, for those who don't know, is like this mandatory like marching band training that you do for like a week or 2 weeks before school starts, where you start learning the routine. You start learning the music, you start learning the places, and like preparing yourself for the rigorous hardships of marching band. So I went there. It was only other musicians, and like most of my life I've just only been friends with musicians. But I remember I just happened to be standing in line. We all had to stand in line to like get measured for our uniforms or whatever. And I remember this dude who I went to middle school with. He was in band. He was a trumpet player, but we had never really been friends or talked or anything. We knew each other's names, but that was about it. And I was wearing this dope jacket, this really cool jacket. I wasn't talking to any of my old friends who were also in band and also there in band camp with me. And this dude says to me, it's like, cool jacket. You trying to be like a rock and roller now? And I was just like, yes. And that dude and I became best friends. That guy, I was a groomsman or whatever at his wedding a couple of years ago. Um, yeah, so that like little sarcastic remark and my just like brutal, untouchable honesty um, in the face of it. That was like the foundation of a really close friendship. Um, I still consider him a friend. We don't talk all that often, but yeah, he's a big deal in my life. But he and I became really close friends, and I actually became friends with a few other people in marching band. There was actually, Jesus Christ, it's like I'm forgetting. You know, this is actually a really useful uh, thing for me. Um, because I forget actually how about all the good stuff that had happened. I tend to like dramatize my life and to make it into it like a tragedy, and like there's like parts that are just tragedy, but realistically it's like earlier it's like I was friends with that girl who lived in my neighborhood, and like there was another girl I was friends with in middle school, and she ended up being in color guard in high school, and we remained friends. We're really close. um, you know uh, yeah, and she was another person that I feel like a kinship with and friendship with. But we were friends, and so like me and this dude were friends, and like we ended up like forming this sort of like small like core group of like four people, who were really close friends with each other during band, and all of that year we would hang out. Mostly in school, but also like during band. It's like when you're in marching band, you don't really have time, like that much free time. You're at school every day an hour early. You have like a 3 hour plus practice like 1 or 2 nights a week, and then like every other weekend, for like long swaths of time, you are going like traveling on a bus to go to band reviews where you perform your field show, you maybe do a parade, and then you also just like hang out for like sometimes like 5 hours with nothing to do. Um, and so we ended up hanging out a lot together during during those times. Like of course, because like it's like if people had friends outside of bands, like they weren't there, so like we were the group of people hanging out. And me and one of the other dudes, who was like a year older than us, who we became really close friends with, and who is still a really close friend of mine. We were assholes, dicks, pranksters. Like I don't know what you want to call it, but um, we did not uh, obey the rules often. There was one band review that this town had like a mall in it, and we went to the mall, and with like a bunch, like with maybe like 20 other people, we got like water guns, and we filled them up in the fountain at the mall, just sort of like dipping into the public fountain at the mall. And we had a water gun fight inside the mall, and because of that, we were banned forever from going to that mall. But not only were we forever banned from going to that mall, but any school from the band review could not go to that mall anymore. They were not allowed. So we got a permanent lifetime ban for everyone indefinitely, because we were super soaking it at the mall. Um, Jeez. So that's one story. Another story is we stole a bunch of pomegranates at another band review, and went around chucking them at the walls of the school we were at. That's not that exciting of a story, but it stands out to me. In this time, in like freshman, sophomore year of high school, I let's see, like I was also friends with this guy who was like possibly the greatest guitarist I've ever met. Like he was he was my age, and somehow he had like mastered the guitar. He was like this into hard like rock, heavy metal, like all of this shit, and like got me into like random punk bands and shit. But he was super cool, and he was like a really 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 talented musicians musician, and but he was also like a bit of a like troubled soul, I think. He had like problems with his family at home. Like I think his parents like had a messy divorce or something. I'm not really sure, and I don't want to put like I don't want to say anything. Honestly, I probably shouldn't have even said that. But he, gosh, so pale. Yeah. But he was I get he told me that the first time he smoked weed was in second grade, and his like cousin gave it to him or something, and like he bragged that like his lungs were so black that he didn't cough anymore. Oh God. Why is it freezing? I legit don't understand why it's freezing. Excuse me. Okay. There we go. There we go. Gosh, damn. Okay. Sorry. Thank you for being patient. I'm trying out a new streaming setup, and clearly I don't have all of the kinks worked out, but I'm trying. Yeah. So this dude would brag about that shit, and I'm not gonna say that it's great or whatever that he did all this stuff. I never smoked in high school. I didn't drink in high school, but me and this dude would go to a youth group, a Christian youth group. I just can't stay away, I guess. And we would do shit like one time we both wore Bad Religion shirts, which like I don't know if you know the band Bad Religion, but their symbol is a cross with a cross through it. So very antagonistic, and in the middle of the pastor's speech at this thing, we started chanting "Hail Satan" over and over and over again. That's just like the kind of thing we did, you know. It's like boys will be boys. Who knows? It's like we got kicked out. We got super kicked out and told that, like, so the pastor like said random shit to us, and yeah. I don't remember. We were allowed to come back for some reason. We were somehow allowed to come back, and like I had a couple other friends who were going to that youth group at the time. And what was fun about it is that we would all go to In-N-Out after. We would all like go to youth group and like hear whatever random shit about God. And afterwards, we would all go to In-N-Out and have burgers and hang out. And that was really fun. That's what I really got into. And we would, yeah. There was like a couple times, there was actually only one time, but one time I went there with, God, I don't know who was with me when we did this. I think it was the girl who was in color guard. I think together we went to this thing. Yeah, we went to this thing and snuck into a construction site afterwards, and in this construction site there was this huge hill of gravel, and we like climbed it. It was like, I don't know, like 80 feet tall. Like I don't really have a metric for measuring how tall it was, but it was really tall. And we slid down this hill of gravel in this construction site, and it just like shredded my pants. I was wearing these jeans and they got a huge rip in it. I was like, dope. Like, because pre-ripped jeans suck, but like getting rips in your jeans, that's hardcore. And we just like, after that we just went to In-N-Out and met up with everybody. So breaking into construction site is something that I have experience with, if you're hiring for that. Oh my gosh, okay. Anxiety is passing. I'm having a lot of fun right now. Gosh, let's see. What else? Uh-oh. What the heck? Sorry, I just got a error message. This is so complicated. It's so much easier to stream from your webcam. But yeah, so I got into like a lot of ridiculous hijinks as a kid. And yeah, there were some not so ridiculous hijinks. Like, I still sort of carried with me that the depression, the depression that I had. I still carried this sort of like inability to love myself and to have like high self-esteem, and I still think that that is what sort of like, I don't want to like blame the victim, you know, but I feel like that is part of what made me a target, still, to bullies and shit. And there was this one kid who was super just wild, just like chaotic energy, and he was in band too. And one trip we were rooming together, and he beat me over the head with a corded phone, or tried to. I don't know what this kid had with me, but like also on another trip, he threw like a giant rock at my head, and it hit, and like I had a lump on my head. I don't know what the deal with it is, with that kid is. He was like really fucking too much, man. And he, yeah, like I think that it's like one of those people that other people don't really know how to deal with. Like when they go off the rails, it's just like, what the fuck is happening? And that's sort of the vibe. But like, yeah, that stuff did happen to me, unfortunately. So yeah. Anyway, once I turned 16, I started driving. That's what you do in California, is you turn 16 and you start driving. And I really love driving. I think driving is so much fun. I would drive forever. Not really, because I've driven the 5 between NorCal and SoCal, and it sucks. But I do really love driving, and I, that like spirit of breaking the rules didn't really go away once I had gotten a car. And I want to talk about this because it's a little complex, but also fun. So I would do donuts in the school parking lot. I street raced people a little bit. I street raced that kid that I was friends with in 5th grade, the one who had also just moved from Washington, and I won. So I don't know what that tells you, but gosh, I'm just like, yeah, okay. I don't know, but I would do that shit all the time. I was like so fucking reckless, and to the point where I actually, there was one time where I did it where I was like speeding through an intersection and skidding through an intersection, and like one of my friends, the girl who was in color guard, said, was like really mad at me for it because I'd almost hit a car. I almost like really like just like slammed into a car. And it was only because they had put on the brakes that that I didn't, and no one got hurt. So very, 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 very lucky that happened, that no one got hurt there. But at the time, I really just like shrugged it off. I was just like, whatever, I'm cool, I'm above this, which is a really shitty way to act. And clearly, I did have some kind of death wish. I was still suicidal, still depressed in all of that time, and it came out in that way. I was still very, very, very much restricted at home, very, very, very strict household, and I don't know, it came out, I needed to feel like I had some sort of control over my life, because I didn't have any control over my life, and it was like driving made me feel like I could, like I did have control over my life. I know that I've said control over my life like 4 times now, but yeah, it's true, and I acted that way. So I'm not proud of acting that way, and I'm not proud of doing that stuff, and I'm not proud of putting other people's lives in danger. Um, but it happened. Um, and so in the summer between my junior and senior year, I went to Europe on a band trip. And this was a band trip combined between several schools in the area in order to make it more affordable, blah, blah, blah. And that was really fun. It was a really cool trip. And on that trip, I met a, a girl. I met a girl from a different high school, and we started dating on that trip. It was like a weird, like crazy, like tumultuous, romantic, chaotic beginning, because it was like, I don't know, there's like nothing like being on a weird like international trip with other 16-year-olds to, I guess, like make you want to date someone. But we dated for a while. We dated for a really long time, and actually this was my first serious relationship. I have not been in a relationship with anyone prior to this, so I was really happy about that. I was really happy to be in a relationship, and I think that like, I guess one thing I didn't tell you, which I should, is that in middle school, you know that girl that I asked out in 6th grade when I passed a note through several people and they all read it, and then she read it and said no. Yeah, I ended up asking that girl out 2 more times, like at the end of at the end of 7th grade, literally the last day of 7th grade and literally the last day of 8th grade. I asked her out again 2 more times, and she again said no, which is fine. Yeah, but I think that I was really desperate to get into a relationship. I really felt like if someone was in a relationship with me, that would prove that I'm worthy of love, that I'm prove that I am worthy of living. And that's why I was really, really, really desperate to be in a romantic relationship with someone. So when it happened when I was 16, I was thrilled beyond belief. I was so happy, it was like head over heels. I just threw myself into the relationship, to the point where it was actually really damaging to me, because I still hadn't really developed healthy ways of having relationships with people. This is like, it's like less true between like people I had platonic relationships with, like my friends, but I was still sort of like, the basic assumption of me having a relationship with someone else at that age was like, they have all the power, they are more important than me, they're better than me, I'm less than them, and only through like me hoping and wishing and like doing my best, like trying to be as perfect as I could possibly be, could I possibly be worthy of this relationship, of this experience. And that was obviously so unhealthy to think that way, so unhealthy to think that way, so damaging. You really can't be in a relationship at all with anyone ever if that's your mindset. You have to approach it from a standpoint of true equality, of full like self-acceptance and self-love. But I didn't have that, and I wasn't aware. I really was just like so lost, so self-confident to the point of arrogance. She mistreated me. She like really made me feel bad about myself, and yeah, it was like really difficult. And it was like, I just felt like there's like this song, Love is Pain by Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, which is like a song that I listen to. And I like, and there's like all of these ideas that like love and romantic relationships are supposed to be painful or like difficult or it's hard or like whatever. And all of these like really unhealthy romantic, and I mean romantic like the romantic era, like romantic like, oh, dying, passing away, that kind of romance, not like literal romance. There's like this romantic idea that those relationships like have to be hard. They have to be like fraught, or that just like this idea that being in love with someone is an incredibly painful experience. And so I was like diving headfirst into abuse at that age. We were super codependent. She was incredibly insecure, about as insecure as I was. And she also had, it's like, it was interesting. It's like we bonded because, like, and maybe this is like a trauma bond. Maybe it's not, I don't know well enough. But like we bonded because like both of our families were so strict. Both of our mothers were so strict, and so domineering, and such a huge impact on our lives. I think that we bonded over that, and yeah, we just like, it was just, excuse me, it was crazy. I don't even remember the shit we talked about. I don't even remember anything, but we would talk every single fucking day. And like, let me give you an example. Actually, here's a perfect example. So she was in band as well. She was a really talented clarinet player, and we had both gotten into Allstate. Oh yeah, I didn't tell you. I am an Allstate saxophonist. I have won awards for improvisation and jazz solos. That's how you say that, right? Yeah, got to put a little bragging in here. But I was, so she and I were both Allstate musicians. And Allstate is this like yearly, like all-state band that comes together, the best people in all the states that, or in all of California, that submit and audition and blah blah blah, and you go to Fresno of all places, and you learn about music, and you play like music at a much higher caliber than you normally would in high school, which was really cool and exciting. I was really stoked about it, and my school, like our area, like had a really good music program and had really good music teachers in that area, because it was affluent. Let's not beat around the bush. And so like a lot of people from my school and a lot of people from her school were attending Allstate. So it was really exciting. I was super stoked. It was like friends, going to Allstate with some friends. My GF is gonna be there. This is fucking rad. And so when I got there, before I had auditioned, I got there. I got there, and she and her school arrived like 3 or 4 minutes later, and I like waved and said hi to her. I was with my group of people, and she was like on the other side of this building, right? And so like I waved and said hi to her, and I was like in the middle of a conversation, so I kept talking with my friends, and she like stormed over to me and yelled. Because of that, ruin, chaos, disorder. There was no help for it. I was following her around, groveling at her feet. Eventually, I was crying my eyes out in the lobby of this hotel with like literally all of my peers around me, just like sobbing my eyes out. And eventually she was just like, oh, like, whoops. Like, I don't think she apologized for it, God. But it was just like one of those things. It was just like eventually like it smoothed over a little bit. But yeah, so I was like bawling, and like 15 minutes after that, I had to do my audition, because it's not enough to audition beforehand. You also have to audition there so that they can rank you. And of course, I fucking choked. I choked the shit out of that audition, and yeah, I ended up being last place out of the rankings of my instrument, which sucked, because you don't get to play as fun of music. You don't get to play with as interesting of people, but actually, sorry, not interesting of people. You don't get to play with the best musicians. And as a musician, I want to be next to people who are better than me. I want to be next to the people who are who can teach me something more than I already know. And that's true of like everybody. Everybody has something to teach you. I just like wish I hadn't used that word interesting, because that's not true. It's just sort of like, it's a bummer, because I could have gotten more out of the experience if this hadn't happened. But that's like an example of sort of like how our relationship was. And we stayed together for a really long time. It was incredibly tumultuous and extremely unpleasant. Um, After high school, we were still dating. I went to UCLA for college, for music, and she went to the University of Pennsylvania. So all the way across the country, pining hearts, lost souls, like long distance relationship. But yeah, it was really difficult. And what ended up happening was like she cheated on me. She was honest. I don't want to get bogged down in like the story of this girl and like its impact on my life. Although I think that like it's a little telling about who I am, and what life was like for me, that I allowed myself to be hurt so much so often in this relationship. Um, so she cheated on me. We agreed to stay together and try again, and then she cheated on me again literally 4 days after that. Um, so we broke up. And but you know how like when you break up with someone and then you don't talk to them, that's not what this was like. What ended up happening was we talked every single fucking day. It was like the same exact dynamic where it's like I was beholden to her for everything, and like if I made a mistake, like all hellfire is like let loose. It was just like a really shitty year, a shitty way to enter into college. Like what a waste, what a shame to be stuck in this situation, and like just like for just keeping track of things, like still depressed, still suicidal. Um, I did have friends though. I had friends. Actually, it was really cool. Like a couple people from the year above me in high school were also at UCLA, and they were also in marching band, um, which which I was in for the first quarter of that year. And so we would all hang out. We lived like in the dorms, relatively close to each other. I would go to their room all the time. But that quarter, like in UCLA band camp and in fall quarter, um, was when I started drinking. I had not drank at all in high school. There was one time when that friend I mentioned, who was like super good at guitar, and we went to that youth group together and said Hail Satan. He had brought like a thermos of this weird like strawberry vodka drink to school, and I had a sip of it then, but like I didn't. It wasn't. It was like a sip. Like I thought I was being like cool. It's like I didn't want to get drunk because I didn't want to get in trouble. But I still wanted to like be cool or whatever. But I didn't start drinking actually until like I was 19, and in or yeah 19 and in or 18, whatever freshman year of college. And I remember I went to this one like marching band kids party, and that was really my first experience drinking, and I drank a fuck ton. There was like jungle juice and all of this like gross mixed drinks that like young college kids have, and I had a really good time. I had a really good time. I was able to like let go of my inhibitions. It's like I had been so tense my whole life, so fucking tense all the time. And with drinking, I was able to let some of that tension go. Just like be myself. It's like be myself for the first time in who knows how many years. And thus begins the story of my really awful relationship with alcohol. Like I did mention in the beginning and in the description that I was going to talk about alcohol, and I write that story I just told almost sounds like a glorification until the last thing I said, but I don't want to glorify it. It's neither. Alcohol itself is just like a chemical, right? And it's your relationship to it and with it that that is either healthy or unhealthy. And I don't think that my relationship was. I was just about to say that it wasn't unhealthy to start, but it definitely was unhealthy to start. Um, within a couple months, I got so drunk with my friends at in their dorm that I blacked out and threw up on their bathroom door, and I woke up the next morning not really knowing what had happened and just like gross and in one of their beds that they kindly let me use after I had thrown up on their door. Um, yeah. So that is like, I think that that is like a really powerful, um, a powerful indicator that I was not having a healthy relationship with alcohol. And I never really did have a healthy relationship with alcohol. Um, I kept drinking, obviously. I drank all the time. I drank as often as I could. And at that time, like when, especially like early college, it's like it feels like um, parties are always available to you. Alcohol is always available to you. And there's other people who are like me, to a greater or lesser degree, who deal with their problems by drinking alcohol. So like it's always there, and it's always there in an unhealthy way. Um, for me, I like not only did I feel like um, it helped me loosen up, but it also made me feel like a better version of myself. Like because I was able to loosen up and because I um, was able to be more myself, I felt like I could have more of the life that I wanted, be happy when I was drinking, and that, of course, it's just not healthy. It's just not a healthy way to think about it. And that year, I got drunk a lot, and I got really drunk a lot. I blacked out so much. Um, yeah, man, it was not healthy, and not just that year, of course. That continued for quite a while. I got super drunk. Um, but yeah, like that freshman year was like, that was like the defining characteristic of it. Was I was dating this girl who was making my life miserable, and I don't mean to like say that it was like her fault or anything, because it's like I think we were both like getting our getting our jabs in, so to speak, like exorcising our insecurities on each other. It was just a terrible, terrible toxic relationship. Um, and I went to visit her during that year, sometime in winter, I think, and she was also abusing alcohol in the same way that I was. And I'm not saying that like, wow, I guess we did have a connection. I'm saying that like it's everywhere. It's everywhere you look. It's like this horrible, horrible, awful relationship with alcohol. And especially who is susceptible to it, but people who have personal problems, people who are insecure or depressed. And it's like, she probably did have depression too. Like, honestly, if we're being real, like, she had depression for sure. And so did I. And it was just like so many unhealthy ways of dealing with it that you like couldn't know or like don't realize are unhealthy while you're doing it. And when I was there, she got so drunk that I had to take her to the hospital. Um, it was like a really horrible situation because like during that time when I was there visiting her, like I wasn't her boyfriend, like we weren't together, but we kind of were. She was also like in like as she was getting as drunk as she humanly possibly could, she was also like pitting me against this guy who was interested in her, and like trying to make us challenge each other or like fight each other or like something. As like literally as she was getting too drunk to stand, she was doing this real dark, real unpleasant situation. Yeah, so I took her to the hospital, and I ended up having to like fight someone else who was there to be the one to take her to the hospital. It's like seriously, like all like these drunk ass like frat bros basically being like, what, blah, it's like maybe I should go in the. It's like, fuck you, man. It's like you have known her for 2 months. It's like I dated her for over a year. It's like it's like get the fuck out of here. But I had to insist. I had to like insist with the EMTs to be taken in the ambulance with her. But I did. I had to lie to the EMT. I had to tell them that I was sober. which I very much wasn't. And of course, they knew that I wasn't sober, but like blah blah blah, whatever. I don't know what the rules are, but we ended up in the hospital. So yeah, and it was just like a really unpleasant experience, you know. But it wouldn't be the last time I wound up in the hospital because of alcohol. More on that in a bit. Geez, this is gonna be really long. I'm not gonna stop until I'm done. I'm not gonna stop. It's like I'm 30 right now. I turned 30 at the beginning of the month. This is like it's part of the reason I'm thinking about this. But yeah, so we're gonna get into it. That was my freshman year of college, and after freshman year, I broke up with her. I broke up with her, or no, we were not together. We weren't together. But that whole year, I was like a ghost at school. I almost missed like an exam that I had to take in order to continue being a music major, because I was like so out of it, so far removed from what I was actually doing there. It's like I met like a couple new people, but we stopped being friends after a while because I was mostly like just being depressed in my room and waiting to talk to this girl I was dating. But yeah, so we had broken up during that year, and that summer, she asked me to meet her and like begged me to get back together with her. We were in a park in Pleasanton for at least 40 minutes of me sitting on one side of a stone bench, stone picnic table, and her on the other side, and just like me being like, I'm not getting back together with you, and her just crying for so long and begging me to get back together with her. And I did. I did get back together with her. Wasn't the wisest decision, because our relationship hadn't changed. But we spent that whole summer together. We were together. I don't really remember that summer at all. And not because I was drinking. I wasn't drinking. It's just like, you know, stress inhibits your ability to make memories, and I was fucking stressed. That fall, I broke up with her for good. She was visiting me in California during school, and I just told her that I couldn't do it anymore. Like, I didn't want to, and there's nothing that she could say or do to make me want to be with her. And that's where that relationship ended. Cool. Okay. Wow. I can thankfully say that is the last time I'm gonna mention her. She does not come up again, thank God. And there's like way more fun and good stuff ahead. It was one of the darkest times of my life, for sure. But that year, I moved into a house with 7 people, I think. Yeah, 7 people. So we were in this like small, like one-story house, really close to the mall. Malls are like a thing in my life. I don't know why, but really close to the mall. That is on Pico, Pico, and what's that other street? I don't remember. In LA, and on the west side near UCLA. Lived in this tiny house with 6 other people. It was like 2 of us in this really tiny room. There's like another 2 in a really tiny room, and the upperclassmen who were like grad students that we randomly knew, living in much larger spaces. So it was like a really great environment, I think, for me. Because I was friends with these people. A lot of the people I lived with were some of those same upperclassmen that were in marching band with me, that had gone to my high school. But we were like homies, but we weren't like hanging out every second of the day. Frick on a stick. All right, camera. I'm just going to continue. It should be up in a second. yeah, so it's just really good to be in the situation where I I was friends with these people and I could like talk to them, but we weren't like buddy 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 buddy. Um, Lord, okay, okay, is it? There we go. Beautiful. Thank you for your patience. I need to figure this shit out, man. Let's see. No. Yeah. So, I was still drinking heavily. That is true. God, excuse me. Yeah, I was drinking really heavily. I that was the year. Gosh, I don't know where to begin these stories. I guess like here's just like a random episode. When sometime during that year, I took acid with this girl I had just met. It was a friend's birthday party. I was there. There was like a bunch of other people I knew there at the party, and we were all hanging out, and we were all drinking. We were getting really drunk, like we always did. And I was really drunk, and this girl and her friend were just like rolling through the neighborhood, and someone invited them into the party, and I don't remember why this happened, but this girl asked me to like help grab her things from her friend's car because her friend had to leave. And so I did. I went with her, and then this random girl who I had just met like asked me if I wanted to take acid. Oh yeah, I had also been smoking weed earlier in that evening. So I was crossfaded as fuck, and this girl asked me if I wanted to try acid, and I said yes. And this is my incredibly boring acid story. So I took acid, right? And we were on the UCLA campus. Her friend had parked like in like a parking structure nearby or whatever, and we like had gone from the neighborhood to go grab her things, and like question mark. I think I offered for her to stay at my place, the place where I've lived with 6 other people, of course. And she was like, yeah, okay. I was like, do you want to just like walk there? And if you've never taken acid before, then your experience is probably a lot like mine, because I did not get a lot of the things that a lot of people experience during acid because I was already like really fucked up on other drugs. But I had this really incredible feeling of euphoria, and I was like, you know what? We can walk back to my place. We can just fucking walk back to my place. So both of us carrying like bags. I don't know why she had like bags of stuff, but I was carrying like a Trader Joe's paper bag full of like clothes or something. We walked back to my place. It was a 9-mile walk. Yeah, I think that's right. We walked 9 miles, and talked and whatever, and that was fun. She ended up telling me about her ex-boyfriend who had this like not crazy, but like he had this like really strong foot fetish, and he like would always be like hitting her up for feet pics, and she ended up just like, you know, like venting to me about her boyfriend and his foot fetish. And I woke up the next day. She was there, and she got a car. She like had someone that she could call to pick her up, and she left. And I just like had a really, really awful, like the worst hangover you can imagine, was what happened to me. So yeah, that's my really boring acid story. It's like it's like weird, but I don't know. But this is also the year I met 2 of my closest friends. People I'm still very, very close friends with. They were also music composition majors. And they're this really remarkable duo. They're just like a team. They're soulmates. Like I don't know what to say. It's like if you're like a BTS fan, it's like they're like V-men, you know. Um, like deep BTS army reference right there. Gosh, yeah, we became friends, sort of, or at least we like got to know each other a little bit. Like, I don't know. There was one party at the end of the year. I threw a party for my composition class. No one was willing to do it other than me. But it was really good. It was like a lot of fun. It's like I say that as if I care that I had to do it. I love throwing parties. Parties are the most fun thing you can possibly throw. Weird expression, but I'm gonna stick to it. Yeah, and it just got really out of hand. Like at one point, one of my roommates was sweeping the floor, and one of the dudes who was one of the people who became one of my closest friends, was walking behind my roommate, sweeping, and just like pouring out his drink behind him, so that there would be like a trail of, you know, alcohol on the floor behind this dude who was trying to clean up. Yeah. I don't know how much more there is to tell about that year or that experience. I guess I can just like really summarize, just like get into the rest of my like college experience. That summer, I dated this girl who was a year younger than me. She also went to my high school, but we were friend. Like I was really close friends with her best friend, her best friend and her brother, and me and another guy who was like a year younger than me. We're all really really close friends, especially like me and this girl a year younger and this guy, and yeah, and then so like she and I started dating, and it was really nice. It was really cool. I like, not to get too deep into it, but I think that like people who are people who have mental health problems, I think, gravitate towards each other. And like this girl was also depressed. She also had body image issues. But I think I don't know what I'm trying to say here. We had a lot of fun with each other, and I think that we each provided this sort of like stabilizing presence to each other, like a real like genuine connection, but also one that we admitted and knew wasn't necessarily gonna last forever. Like we went into the relationship being like, this is gonna be over at the end of summer. This is just for summer, because we went to different schools, like blah blah blah, whatever. Excuse me. Yeah. But the twist is, we didn't break up at the end of summer. We were leaving. I was leaving to go back to school, and she said that she didn't want to break up, and I didn't either. And fools that we were, we stayed together. And I entered my second long distance relationship of my life, and it was okay. It was like fine. Like we, but it's not the same. It's like I remember calling her, and it's just like it's not the same. I would be out at a party, and like I called her. Yeah, it's just not the same as being in person. I'm not saying that long distance relationships can't work, but it's just like it wasn't right for us. And I went to visit her in October, and I think the whole time I was there, she was trying to like get up the courage to break up with me, because she only did like right when I was about to leave, which was sort of a devastating thing to have to process, like driving back down. She went to school at UC Santa Cruz, and I was at UCLA. It takes a while to drive between those two. And I remember I just like cried the whole way home. I just like cried. And there was like this one moment when there was like traffic coming over the grapevine, and I was just like in my car listening to what is that fucking album? The Good Year, like the one that's like goes through. It's like uh, I don't remember which album it is, but it is sad. It's like about a relationship that doesn't work, and it is the most depressing thing you could possibly listen to. And I listened to it and I cried a lot. And like the next week, I was like really, 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 really fucked up over this, because I felt like for the second time in my life, I had opened myself up to someone completely and been brutally, brutally, brutally hurt because of it. And it was hard for me to deal with. And the reality is, I didn't deal with it. That was my junior year. So in my junior year, I was living with, again, a couple of the dudes that I was living with in that house with before. And what I was doing is I was drinking a lot of wine. I was drinking a lot of $2 Chuck. And I remember one night when I was really sad about the breakup, I drank 2 bottles of wine, 2 bottles of $2 Chuck, completely. I drained them. And that was horrible. I woke up the next morning, like, still drunk and hungover at the same time. My teeth were stained purple, and I had a music theory exam that day, which I don't know, I probably did okay on. I just remember like going to class and like struggling through the entire exam, just being like, when is this going to be done? And then I went to like a Jack in the Box or something and ate the grossest hamburger of my life. Yeah. So another example of a really unhealthy relationship with alcohol. In this year, this is when I became really close friends with those 2 dudes that I mentioned earlier, and this is also the year that I met my partner, my current partner, the person who I've been with for almost 10 years, Marion. We met. She was a librarian at the UCLA Music Library, and apparently she noticed me because I was dressed like a fucking weirdo, which I was, and carrying these like huge oversized scores, and yeah, the rest is history. No, but really, we were like mutual friends with these guys, these 2 dudes, and we got to know each other through them, through hanging out with them, through their parties, and gosh, I just like have to say this, because this is the truth. She was dating someone at the time, and but she was interested in me. And what happened was we hooked up at a party, and we actually hooked up in my friend's a friend's bed. And there's like more to it than that. There's like also like yeah, it's like a complicated thing. But that was like the first time. There was like, oh gosh, I don't know what I'm saying. Yeah, so that's when we got together, and we started dating like not that long after that. I like didn't know. It was like sort of a weird like rocky beginning, because we obviously had a connection. We vibed with each other super hard, but we didn't start dating right away. We started dating like, I don't know, like a couple months after that. Yeah. But that's sort of like the weird, like strange, almost like non-important beginning to this relationship, because what came after that is so much more of what I think about when I think about the way we first got together. And it's so much of just like, burning her a CD of like cool punk music that she should listen to, and biking to the ocean together and like talking about Charles Dickens and like how I think that Charles Dickens sucks and how she liked Charles Dickens. Um, Not sure if there are any dickheads in the house right now. That's what I call people who are into Charles Dickens. It's not, I just made that up on the spot. I'm sorry if you love Charles Dickens. I couldn't care either way. Just making jokes because, yeah. But yeah, like I don't know, we just spent like a lot of time together. We spent like every waking minute together after that. And we actually, even though we both had our own apartment, we would stay with these two dudes in their apartment, like just like sleeping on their couch. They also had like a like pull out bed, convertible couch that they turned into a bed that we just stayed in for a while. Like that, we just like spent every day hanging out with these dudes, every single day, all of us hanging out, all of us being together. And that's what it was like for a really long time, living together. And I guess like what I should mention is that we were drinking like every night. Every single night we would go get like a tilt or a juice or something. Four Locos actually was huge. It was huge for us. We were into Four Locos before they took out the caffeine. Oh, Jesus, I'm burping so much. Yeah, and like it's like we would drink so much and we smoked so many cigarettes. It was just like, honestly, it was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun with these dudes, and this is what I mean when I say that like narratives around alcohol and like addiction and redemption and partying are not very nuanced, because like even if it was in some way, even if I was using alcohol to cope with my depression and suicidal ideation and not feeling good enough to exist, it was also still fun. It did enable us. It enabled us to have fun with each other, and like it's not like we were getting. I don't want to sound offensive, but it's not like we were getting so shit faced every single day that we would like pass out and black out. But we were drinking every single day. We were also just like really into like novelty alcohols. Like one time we got a bottle of chocolate milk alcohol, chocolate milk liqueur from Costco. I don't know what it was about this time, but a lot of like really strange novelty alcohols were coming out. We also got alcoholic whipped cream. It was like whipped cream in like a Ready Whip can, but it was like 2% alcoholic or something. Really strange, and it tasted awful, and so did the chocolate milk. Don't recommend. But yeah, that's when Marion and I got together and first started hanging out. This is also the year that I met another close friend. He and I were in a comp lit class together, and maybe some of that like rebellious spirit of our teenage years came through, but we did not pay attention to what was going on in the class. We were just talking the whole time. It was just like one of those things where it's like we didn't know each other at all before this class started, and we ended up just sitting next to each other a couple times, and we ended up just like talking the day away. And we were shameless about it. It was yeah, we did not pay attention at all to what was going on in class. But yeah, and together, so it's like he and those two dudes and me and Marion all became really close friends with each other, and we're all just sort of like a unit that functioned together. But we had other friends too. And yeah, gosh, let's talk about that. This was also around the time that I started getting really into weed. Like I started smoking a lot of weed, and it was like because it was through I had access to it through this sort of like other like adjacent group of friends outside of like the 5 people that I just mentioned. Um, it's like they were the ones with the weed and we were the ones hanging out with them and like smoking together and playing video games and all this stuff. And a lot of it was fun, and I got introduced to things like Avatar: The Last Airbender through this group of people, which was dope because Avatar: The Last Airbender is a fucking phenomenal show. Highly recommend if you've never seen it. It's just amazing. I've watched it so many times. But yeah, there's like a dark side to that too, because there's like this dynamic in that group that preys upon people, and it's like really insidious because when you are taking drugs, gosh, I sound like a fucking 90s Dare PSA. When you're drinking a lot and when you're getting high a lot, it's really easy to misinterpret social malfeasance is like the best way I can put it. But people who use their position as a human being to subtly antagonize the people around them and to subtly manipulate them, and that's what was happening to me and to a few other people, to a few people who were there. It like really, it was like one of those things where it's like, because I was always inebriated, I didn't really realize it was happening until years later. Like literally until a few years ago, I did not realize what was happening to me. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I could have done differently, but it was also definitely a situation in which the abuse of alcohol and the constant smoking of weed sort of enabled these behaviors. It empowered some of these people, some of this other group of friends to take advantage of the rest of us, or to make us feel bad in all of these like awful, unpleasant ways. And I have a lot of really strong memories of being made to feel uncomfortable, of like people around me being made to feel uncomfortable, and it's just really a really shitty kind of behavior. Like, fuck it. Like, in for a penny, in for a pound. I'm not gonna name names, but like, if any of these people are watching this, they'll know that I'm talking about them. There's a group of people who like this group of people, this like other group of friends, were very well-to-do for the most part. There was one of them who like was not rich, but the rest of them were very rich, and it's not like they flaunted it, but they do that thing that rich people often do, which is like flaunt not flaunting, and it's still sort of like a display of power and a display of wealth. And there's a sort of like, there's something beyond that where it's like they all went to this like manners school or like etiquette school when they were young that like taught them that there are certain ways to act, and they would, because they had learned that, because they had all learned that, they would like enforce those rules against people who, you know, like me, did not go to fucking etiquette school, did not go to Miss Manners class or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, and there were like a good deal of times where just like for no reason whatsoever, you were made to feel bad for how you acted. And I remember thinking that like at the time it was just like, oh well, I was just like being a fuckwad because of alcohol. Like I was just drinking, and it caused me to act in these ways. And like that's what the problem was. It wasn't like blah blah blah. But it's like the real answer is that I was not doing anything wrong in the first place, and I was being misled to believe that I was. And that happened in a number of ways. This group of people also talked about each other behind their backs all the time. They would talk about, which just tells me that they talk about you behind your back, you know? That's like, that's like the surest sign. If you are listening to someone talking about someone else you know behind their back, then you know that person also talks about you. behind your back, guaranteed. It was just like a really, really unhealthy dynamic, and really like traumatizing in some ways, to the way that they use their power and use their status to make the rest of us feel small. And there was one time specifically, they were like a court. They are like a court. At least the last time I spent time with them, they are like a fucking court, and you have to pay court. There's a king, and sometimes there's a queen, and you have to obey the rules of social nicety, or they'll make fun of you in front of your face, acting like they're not making fun of you. And it's like I am hesitant to like use the word gaslighting, because I don't know if that even applies, but it's like similar to that, where it's just like you don't even know that you're being insulted and made fun of and humiliated in front of this whole group of people until you can put it together later. And part of that is the access to alcohol and the access to weed. And I think that they abused having that access and sharing that access, in order to make the rest of us, to give the rest of us an opportunity to humiliate ourselves in their eyes. Because, of course, we weren't doing anything wrong. Excuse me. We were just being normal human beings, kids, fucking 20-year-olds. But yeah, I don't want to like talk about this group of people too much, or like postulate about why. My camera. Or postulate about why they might act the way that they do. But it was really gross, and it was really bad. And I'm just going to give a small example of this. Like, Marion and I were hanging out with this group of people at one of their parents' house. And we were watching Melancholia, which is a bad movie. Melancholia is not a good movie, and Lars von Trier is not a very good director. That's just my opinion. I've never seen Antichrist, but... God, sorry about the camera. It's going to come back soon. Jeez. Okay, I'm gonna have to try to fix that for next time. Yeah, we were watching Melancholia, and it wasn't very good. And like, in the habit of our relationship, like Marion and I were like talking over the movie a little bit and like making fun of it and joshing around. And I picked up eventually that this was a group of people for whom you don't do that. You do not talk during the movie or else. And I kept sort of like trying to indicate that to Marion, and I remember it's like even in the way that I was responding, I was like mortified. I was mortified that that like Marion might say something that would humiliate her in front of these people, and like feeling it was like makes me so upset to think about this now, because like honestly, like what I really should have done is like antagonize the fuck out of these people for being such dicks to us. But what ended up happening was Marion made another comment, and La Reina, the queen of the court, said, "Am I gonna have to watch this again tomorrow?" There's this really awful, snide comment. Frick, this fucking camera. Just this really awful, snide comment that literally made Marion cry at this chill hang where we're watching a movie together. Marion is crying into a pillow and trying not to be heard, and I'm there like comforting her. It's like we were in this like such an aggressive, abusive like friendship dynamic, that we were both like made to go through this like truly awful, abysmal situation. Oh my gosh, this fucking camera, dude. But yeah, it's like I didn't even realize that was what was happening until much later. Frick. You know what? This camera was like a nice like idea, but I'm just gonna. There we go. Yeah. Oh, I guess I'll just go like this. Um, yeah. Uh, so that's something that we've all dealt with and we've all talked about a little bit after the fact. But that's like another. There we go. It's another thing that's gone on in my life. Another shitty relationship. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Marion, for correcting me. You were crying into a dog. Glad you're here. Please feel free to correct me. Any additional points? Yeah. So fun stuff. And more on this group of friends later. I can't wait. God. I'm hearing Marion laughing at me from the other room. Let's see. Okay. But you know, there were good times too. One of them that wasn't a good time was I was a telemarketer for a while at UCLA. I called people to try to get donations to the school, which was so stressful. It's like if you're a person who is prone to anxiety, never ever work at a call center. Highly, highly recommend not doing that. It was bad. At one point, it's like, because it's just like, what happens is like you're sitting at a computer, waiting, like listening to the phone ring and ring and ring. So like it rings 3 times and then click, and then it starts ringing the next number. There is just no break, no pauses. Like you can get up and use the bathroom and like take a couple minutes here and there, but you have to be at your computer calling, and you have to be like ready to get into the spiel. You know, the thing about this is I was really good at it. I was really, really fucking good at it. There was a night that I got like $4,000 of donations, and the average is like 200. So not to brag or anything, but you know, yeah, but this job gave me such incredible anxiety that one day I was driving to work and I could not being like, no, this is over. And I called and just like quit right there on the spot. And I would be shocked if I was the first person who's done that. Yeah, bad job, don't like. But other fun stuff, like, we, one summer or one like spring or whatever, we went up to picnic day at UC Davis, which is this day of drinking at UC Davis that they have every year, and it's like a summer festival that's like really fun, and they have events or whatever, but the only event is drinking. And I had gone like once or twice before, because that really close friend that I made in high school who commented on my jacket was at UC Davis, and I hung out with him there once or twice. But yeah, the whole premise of picnic day is that you are just like literally waking up, drinking all day, just like drinking. So, and I have a lot of good memories of that trip. That was a really fun trip because it was me, Marion, those 2 dudes, and one of those dudes' girlfriend. I keep saying those 2 dudes, but like the people on this, I feel like the people who are watching this, the people that I know personally, like, are for sure know who I'm talking about. I just don't feel comfortable using their names explicitly. But yeah, and we all went up there. It was like a road trip. It was like really fun. I don't really have a story for this. It was like a really fun and really good experience. Although I guess the one story I do have is that we had been drinking the day before. The day before picnic day, that is, we like got there and we were like hanging out. We were like drinking in the afternoon or something. And I went to the bathroom, and when I came back, we were talking about fighting for some reason, like MMA fighting. And I was like, yo, I'll fight somebody. You guys want to fight? Like, let's fight. And so I like me and this dude are just like fighting, like sparring, you know, like for fun. And this guy just like crushes me in this fight. Like he just did, there was like one punch that he did, like a punch like right to my liver, and he told me about this afterwards because you'll see, I'll explain in a second. Like right, so he punched me right in the liver, and I just like feel this like gush of like, oh, my body is not functioning anymore, it doesn't want to go. And I like was like, okay, this fight is over, you win, fuck it. And after that, I found out that while I was in the bathroom, everyone had been talking about how this dude was like an MMA fighter, and this guy was like had trained for years and was like a black belt or something. So I didn't know that. I didn't know that coming into this. Hold on. I know this is vain, but my face has like a huge white spot on it, so I'm just gonna like lower the blinds a little bit. Whoa. Getting a bit of a free show there. Join my OnlyFans. Yeah. And that I just think that's like a funny story that this dude was like beat me up. Funny and true. Gosh, what else? I think for college, that's about it. There's like not, actually, I don't know, that's not true. During my junior and senior years, I was the MC for the composer recitals. Every quarter, if you wanted to and you were a composer, you could have a piece performed at a composer recital. There was no grade attached to it. It was just like a fun way to sort of like professors would come, other musicians would come. It was a good way to like get people to play your music, and it was it's just like a lot of fun. It's like if you're a composer, if you're going to school for composing, this is like the event of the season. And it was really cool because like even as a junior, it's like none of the seniors wanted to lead it. They didn't want to be an MC. So I was just sort of like, I can do it. And I did, and it was like a lot of fun. I actually really enjoyed it, and I got to have several pieces of my own performed there. My junior year, I was in a band with these two dudes and with that other guy that I met in my comp lit class and another guy. And we played a couple shows at this place called the Co-op at UCLA. It's like a cooperative housing for students, and we played a couple shows there. We were like the Co-op band actually for a while, and it was really fun. It was like original songs. The band is called Sympathy Sympathy, which if you saw my tattoo just a second ago, that's what that tattoo is. And yeah, man, it was a lot of fun. And that band played for those two guys' senior recital as composers. Yeah, man, good times. Everybody's in a band in college, trust me. Like every single person is in a band in college, at least one. Even if you don't know it, you are in a band. Gosh, where do I go from here? So yeah. My senior year of college, I got really into smoking weed, like way into smoking weed. And I want to take this moment to talk about the complexities of drug use. For me, I think weed saved my life. And I don't mean that figuratively, I mean literally, and I don't mean that in the sense of like 420 blaze it, I love smoking weed. I mean that in the sense that like if I hadn't been smoking weed, then I would have been drinking a lot more, and I probably would have died. And again, that's you'll hear more about that later. Yeah, but I was smoking a lot of weed. I was smoking too much weed probably. I had a medical card. I got a medical card. This is a great story actually. I got a medical card by going to a doctor, a weed doctor, of course. They in LA they do have weed doctors. I don't know if they have them anymore now that it's legal, but yeah, I went to this weed doctor, and I had to wait in this like weird office where a Seth Rogen movie was playing because stereotypes are true. And what happened was I went into this room with a doctor, and the doctor and I filled out this sheet and was like, why do you think you need weed? I was like, depression, which was truer than I was letting myself believe at the time, because I was like, I'm not depressed, right? I'm having too much fun in my life to be depressed. But yeah, so like the guy, like I went into an examination room. He went like with his like stethoscope, was like, dun, dun, dun. Okay, and then like filled out some paper, signed my paperwork, and I got a medical marijuana card. Very, very, very legit. And that is how healthcare should work, actually, is, excuse me, doctors believing you at face value. Let me just say that. God, I'm burping so much today. What is that? Yeah, so I guess like the important thing to note about this is that I was smoking a fuck ton. I was smoking too much. And I was still drinking a lot too. And I was drinking still just like the shittiest booze you can imagine. Fucking Four Locos every day. Red Four Locos are my jam. Do not send me a Four Loko in the mail, please. Like, I will vomit. Yeah, but so like what happened was that at the end of senior year, Mary and I were still together. And we both were just sort of like looking at each other like, let's move to New York. I don't remember exactly how this conversation came up. But I think it was like we have this thing that we just call brainwaves, where we're just like both thinking the same thing at the same time. And I think it might have been just like one of those moments where it's like one of our friends, one of those two dudes, had moved to New York to go to grad school, and another the other of the two dudes went to New York because his GF is going to grad school there. And then Mary and I were just like, we've basically lived in California our whole life. Like she literally had never lived outside of Southern California. And I had spent so much time in California and on the West Coast that we were just like, we're young, we're dope, we have friends there, let's go to New York. God, why is my hand so like trying to do the finger heart? So we did move to New York. That was like 2013. We were the ripe young age of 22, very young. And we moved to New York. We moved into this Airbnb that we got. This like really shitty Airbnb. It was one room. The shower had zero water pressure. And we moved there with a cat, and I moved with like one check bag of clothes, and that's all I had. All my possessions in the world in that one check bag and like a backpack or something. We moved there right as like a storm was coming. It was like in January that we moved, and there was like a huge storm just like a couple weeks later. Very cold. I did not have the proper attire at all to go to New York. But the other thing, and why I was mentioning that I was like smoking weed so much in the year previously, is that I ended up going through like a crazy withdrawal when we went to New York, or like shortly before. I'm not really sure, but it was like a really huge change, because weed in New York is like super unpleasant to get. It was not Sandy, it was Nemo. Sandy had happened like a little before. It was like Sandy had happened like right before we moved. Winter Storm Nemo happened after that, and that was the one we were there through. I guess it's not that important to note that I detoxed from weed. I don't know, it's just like on my mind because I was talking about it with a friend yesterday. And so that first year was really rough. It was like maybe the worst year of my life. And so what happened was that Mary and I ended up moving to Harlem to this like really like teeny tiny studio apartment in Harlem, smaller than the room that I'm in right now, and organized like a hallway. It was just one long. Sorry, I'm mirrored. I'm trying to figure this out. One long hallway with the tiniest, gross kitchen in the world. It was right next to the street. One time I found a rat. It's like, oh, gross. But yeah, it was, and it's hard. It's like, what I would say is that if you're gonna move across the country and live with a human being that you're seeing and that you haven't lived with before, make sure you have enough space. It was definitely like a lot of personal conflicts between the two of us during this time. It didn't help that we were also drinking so much, too much, spending so much money on alcohol, money that we did not have. It was awful. It was a really, really shitty time. And there was one day where I had a day off from work, and I remember I like got a handle of gin, and I just drank straight gin all day, and I was just like wasted by the time Marianne got home. And the thing is, I had promised to get like a coffee machine or a coffee maker, because this was like a couple months into living there, and we hadn't gotten a coffee machine yet, and I promised her that I would get a coffee machine. And so when she got home, I was like, fuck, I have like pissed this whole day away drinking bottom shelf gin all by myself, and I didn't even get a coffee maker. So I went out drunk as a nightmare and got a percolator from the local grocery store. I don't know what I looked like. I don't know what I smelled like. It was probably not an appealing version of Kirk, but yeah, unhealthy relationship to alcohol. Yeah, and gosh, and so I think that was it was that year also that hanging out with some friends, I was at a party that Marion couldn't go to or wasn't at for whatever reason, and I got really, really drunk. I got way drunker than I realized I was getting, and on the way home I blacked out and passed out in a subway station. And fortunately, my friends were with me, thank God. They took me to a hospital, and God bless my friend's girlfriend for being cognizant in the moment and making sure they didn't give me a CAT scan, because that would have bankrupted me. And crazy how that is, right? Yeah, but like, so I came to, and I was still drunk, and I remember I like thought it was really funny for whatever reason that the situation happened, and I made a joke like, this is so metal, man, like some stupid joke like that. And then there was also like this gauze brand called Avant Gauze in the hospital, and I thought that was really funny, and we were joking about that for a while. But yeah, that's the first time that I ended up in the hospital from drinking. Yeah. Where do I go from there? So yeah, New York is tough. I was originally working as a receptionist at this architect's office, and that was terrible. It was awful. I hated it, and I was really, really depressed. And this was like a sort of like formative moment where I got fired, and my boss was just like, "You're too sad to be a receptionist. You're too sad for me to have in my office, in my business." and you're too young to be this sad, is what he said, like wistfully. He was like a 50-year-old capitalist gay man, if you can picture what he looks like from that. But it was like it was formative because it was the first time I realized that other people could see how I was feeling and that I wasn't hiding it. Certainly not hiding it well, apparently. That this, like, basically a stranger to me could see that I was depressed. Yeah. I don't know, it's like not super important to talk about the places that I've worked, I don't think. Other than to say that I was like poor as shit, especially that year. Like my family is not poor. My family is, I would say, wealthy. But I'm an extremely proud person, and I don't like taking money from people, and I didn't. And so what happened was that year I was like making minimum wage before minimum wage got raised to $15 an hour, and I was choosing between bills to pay like every single month. I was like deciding whether or not I would pay a student loan or the internet bill or whatever, and the student loan always lost because fuck student loans. Oh my god, my throat. But yeah, like it got to a point where my mom and dad came to visit for Thanksgiving, and my mom actually had to like, not had to, but she decided to sit down with me alone privately and like go over budgeting stuff with me. And it was like, your rent should really only be 25% of your total income. And it's like, your rent is way higher than that right now. It's like, damn, you are out of touch with what it's like to be 22 and living in America. That's not realistic, and especially not in New York. But I did stuff like there was a time when I had to go to New Jersey every single day to work, and I would take the train from Penn Station to New Jersey and back again. And because it was only one stop, what I would do is I would buy children's tickets for the way back, because they don't check your tickets on the way back if you're only going one stop. There's like a stand, and if you can pass the stand, if you use the ticket to get past the stand, they don't check again on the train. So no one ever knew that I was using children's tickets. And I did that to save like $20 a month. That's the level of dire straits that I was in. But of course, always found money for alcohol. So after living in Harlem for a year, we moved to Brooklyn, which in and of itself was like a whole strange thing. Like where we lived in Brooklyn was like bonkers weird. Although I loved it. I loved that neighborhood. And it was good. It was like right off the L, which is like used to be the hip train in fucking New York. And I just said hip, and I'm thinking of this like BTS Island episode where they're like, the second you say hip, you're not hip anymore. Anyway, God, my throat is dying. I can like summarize a little bit. Like the first 3 years of living in New York, when all of my friends were still here, when all the friends I had like made in college were still here, was like one abuse of alcohol after the next. And there were 2 other instances that happened in that time where I became so drunk that I couldn't go home. I ended up wandering, three more times that I got so drunk that I wasn't able to get home. And 2 of those times I ended up coming to and getting home. But one of those times I ended up in the hospital again for drinking, for alcohol poisoning. And yeah, like people say stuff like it was a wake-up call. but it wasn't a wake-up call for me. It was like, and it's not like I was like wished I hadn't woken up. It's not like I wanted to die instead of dealing with this alcohol situation. But I don't know. It's like I was already awake. Like I already knew what I was doing and how bad what I was doing for me was. But I just didn't have any reason to stop. That's not true. That's a lie. It took me, there was one time, the very last time this happened to me, I woke up in a hospital in Brooklyn near enough to home that I could take the train and go home. And I did that. And I had been out all night. I got in at like 7 in the morning. And of course, Marion was really upset, really afraid of what might have happened to me. And I just like really didn't realize that my life had an effect on other people until that moment. And so like that, I guess, was more of the wake-up call for me, was realizing that whether I lived or died mattered to other people. And I like really, really didn't know that before, and I really didn't believe it before, because whether I lived or died didn't really matter to me. It was not something that I was, concerned about. Depression. Yeah. Gosh. But in that same time, like actually like the first year that that we lived in New York, I read Ursula K. Le Guin's The Left Hand of Darkness. And a very small part of that book is about suicide, is about dying, is about how suicide eliminates the potential for change. And I'm not doing it justice, because you really have to read the book to get the full understanding. But reading that book was the first time in my life that I decided that I wasn't going to kill myself. Because like up until that time, I was like, yeah, I'm going to kill myself. Like one day when I'm ready, I'm going to kill myself. As soon as that day comes, I'm going to kill myself. And then reading that book, I was like, I don't want to die. I don't want to kill myself. I want to live. And here I am, alive. But some of the other things that were going on at that time was I'd gotten really deep into this subculture on Tumblr called gore blogging. If y'all were on Tumblr, you might remember gore blogs. I had a gore blog. It wasn't like huge, like or whatever, but I was like in the community of gore bloggers, and as someone who's very intuitive and smart might understand or like sense, gore blogging, the blogging of like very visceral bodily disruption, has a lot of connections with a culture of white supremacy. And there was a culture of white supremacy on Tumblr at that time that was like heavily interlinked with gore blogging. And I was consuming a lot of that media. I like didn't further any of that stuff, and I didn't go on. It's not like it's like I wasn't promoting it or making like racist tirades or rants or whatever or posts or anything, but I was always being exposed to it. And I think that stuff got in my head a little bit in some ways, and it took it was there. It was like taking root, and I don't know what would have happened to me if not for like the Ferguson uprising explicitly. Like it was like a moment of crisis, like a moral crisis for me, of like looking at this situation and being like, oh yeah, no, I'm not a white supremacist. I will not be a white supremacist. No, white supremacy is bad, and all of this other stuff that you're saying cannot be divorced from the political reality that Black people face, the life and death reality that Black people face every single day. I don't know what you can take from that, and again, this is not for anyone except for me. But it's true. It's like that's the reality of what I was experiencing at that time in 2013, 2014. A lot of white supremacist rhetoric on the internet. And yeah, it's just like I was actually in, like, I would say that like beginning sometime in UCLA, or like in late high school, and ending somewhere around then in like 2015, it's like a really dark time in my life. And like I've already talked about like a lot of the dark things that have happened to me. It was like an ideological dark disconnect between who I thought I was and who I am as a human being. When I was in high school and I was like 15 or 16, my friends and I would like say that we're communists, and and mean it. And like I remember arguing with my friend's mom about communism and about anarchy, and saying that these are good things. Like, yes, like fuck our society. She was like, but what about all the chaos? It's like, that's like the dumb like liberal idea of what anarchy is. Anyway, sidetrack. But somewhere in those years, I sort of like lost sight of that, and I sort of like I wanted to be wealthy. I wanted to be rich. I wanted to be successful as a capitalist. And especially living in New York makes you kind of feel that way. Like you have to. It's like grind or die kind of vibe in New York. Until one of my close friends, one of the guys that I was friends with at UCLA, was talking to me about this zine, Accomplices Not Allies, and just anarchism in general. And he brought that seed back into my life, that seed of like radical thought, and it pushed me. It's like that, and like talking, like thinking, like watching what happened to Mike Brown and Ferguson, and like Tamir Rice, and like, literally, like, I mean, literally countable, but like hundreds and hundreds of other people, other Black people murdered by the police. It was like a reality check for me to start engaging with the world in a radical way again, and divorcing myself from capitalist imperialist thought, which had invaded. What's so wild to me is that I remember I like started identifying as a communist when I was taking AP US history, and it's like, because you take history classes, and they don't really hide from you the fact that Europe was colonizing the world and killing people and stealing their shit and stealing their people and taking their labor and imperializing, the entire world. And in US history, they don't hide. They tell you all of these atrocities, all of like the Bataan Death March, all of the like gritty realities of slavery and the slave trade, all of these horrifying stuff of like trying to wipe out the indigenous populations. Like, you learn that. They teach it to you, and expect you not to become a radical. And I guess not everybody does, which kind of blows my mind a little bit. But yeah, it's a little off track. Um, uh, those friends that had been in New York that we had moved over here, because partially because they were here, they eventually moved home. First one, and then the other. They moved back to their respective home states, and I didn't really have any friends in New York, and I still kind of don't have any friends in New York. There's like a few people that I've met, but no one that I'm all that close to. And yeah, it's like I think that like throughout my life I've had different difficulties making friends with people, um, and throughout my life I've blamed my lack of friends or inability to make friends on different things, and I don't want to do that, and I'm not going to do that. I just think, yeah, I don't know. Okay, continuing. I In the years following this, like 2015 to 2018, let's say, I started freelancing actually. I was freelancing during that time, and I worked with a couple different people, and I was working from home. It was like actually some of the best years of my life, or the best like time of my life when I was freelancing. I was so happy to, um, I don't know, like freelancing, like working from home gives you more time and like I would like do laundry in the middle of the day, like get it done, just like go out and do laundry, come back and do work, go and pick it up. It was really nice. And then, but eventually I stopped freelancing. I sort of got like coerced into turning my freelance work into a full-time job, with this company that I was freelancing at, which had a really toxic environment. But what else was happening at the time? I was still drinking a lot, but this is sort of the time period where I started drinking less and less. Marion and I, began to acknowledge the harmful role that alcohol had played in our lives and how much we relied upon it to cope with whatever was going on. And so sometime in that time, a friend, if you recall, the other friends, the court, one of those people came to visit, and this person was always a person that I had admired and liked and thought was cool. They came and visited, and we hung out for a bit, and we ended up smoking weed in McCarran Park. And I was already anxious about smoking outside. For a long time, smoking made me really anxious in general in New York because it's illegal. And I have this really strong fixation on legality, that I constantly am trying to do away with and ameliorate. But at that time, I was still like really fixated on it. So I was like, yeah, okay, like this is cool. We can smoke in the park. But it was definitely a little bit anxious. We started smoking, and I was high by the time that I realized that this dude was making these really shitty, snide remarks about me, in the same way that I was like talking about how that group would do that, would be like saying things that are insults, like veiled insults, basically. This dude was doing that quite a lot. Um, to me, it's like an example is like, oh, it's like I like said something like, man, that sucks that you, uh, sucks that like, your grandpa like beat you a little bit while you were growing up. That's like awful. I'm like really sorry to hear about that. And then what he said, and like looked me dead in the eye while he was saying this is like, yeah, well at least I didn't grow up to be a pussy. Uh, Fuck you, bro. Really shitty. It's like stuff like that, but also stuff that's much more subtle than that. Um, but I felt like I was like Marion didn't notice it. She just didn't pick up on sort of like the double meanings and the like the things that he was saying that were directed to me, and I had like a full on panic attack, the worst panic attack I've ever had in my life. I think it was like also the first like real panic attack that I can remember having. I shut down. I could not speak. I could not think. I was just anxious as fuck. And we ended up going to this dude's friend's apartment and like chilling there for a while before going to a friend of mine's place. And I was just sitting there the whole time. I could not move. I was like dead. It was so much anxiety. It's awful. If you've never had a panic attack, I am happy for you. It's not something I would wish on anyone. And that whole time, he was just being a fucking dick. He was like basically butthurt that like I had ruined his day by like having an anxiety attack because he was being a dick to me. And like I wanna like go into more than just the details, or into just the facts of this event. I want to say like the reason that I had a panic attack is because I thought this person was my friend. Like I was there 100%. I was trusting. I was there with an open heart, and this person just shat on it, and just made me feel so bad and so stupid for opening myself up like that to someone who could be so cruel. Yeah. And that was just like, I don't know what else to say, because like I wasn't really thinking anything. I really just shut down after that. But that was like, I guess, a formative experience. And it was around that time that I started realizing how abusive a lot of those people's behavior was in general. And yeah, awful. But it was also around those same times that I started realizing that I wasn't a cishet man. I would like the whole time we were in New York. I don't know what it was about being in New York, but maybe it was just like not being in school where like I could have time to devote my brain energy to something else. But I was like, what's up with me, dude? Like, what the fuck is up? It's like same-sex attraction, like non-same-sex attraction, like what is going on? And like that's just like the sexual stuff. It's like before I even got into like gender, it was just like, am I into dudes? Am I gay? Am I bi? What the fuck is going on? And that was like something that I'd been dealing with for a while. And it's like the like white supremacy people on Tumblr were also transmisogynistic. Surprise, surprise, right? I know you guys were expecting them to be very welcoming and open-hearted and open-minded and good allies. Sorry, that's sarcasm. I shouldn't be sarcastic. I hate sarcasm. And I had absorbed some of those ideas as well. And I thought, and let's like, let me take a minute to do an aside. It's like on Tumblr, there were these kin people, other kin, who claimed that they were wolves or dragons or whatever. And it was this like large, extensive group of people who were, I think, just like largely like having fun with their imaginations and like whatever. Like, I don't know. I'm not going to pass judgment at this point, but I certainly did then. I was very judgmental about this, and I sort of like co-integrated that with ideas about trans identity. And it took me a while to untangle that and unpack that. And actually, one time I made a really shitty comment on Tumblr where it wasn't even that bad. Honestly, it was just like, what even is like trans and cis? This is dumb. It's like something, this is like what I said, but I got reamed for it. This like blog, like, look at this fucking cisgender, reblogged me. Because look at this fucking cisgender, or so they thought. And I just got like a lot of hate in my inbox, and like, fair, like, I'm not gonna blame any of the people who were upset by seeing what I said. I said it out of misunderstanding, and actually it was like after I like read all that hate, and I was like, fuck, that's okay. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm the stupid one, or at least ill-informed. And yeah, so that was like a sort of like getting my ass kicked online was sort of a turning point for me, for like learning more about what it meant to be trans. And like years later, like a few years later, like this is all like, I'm talking, like what I'm talking about now about like trans experience in New York, it's taking place over like 5 years. All throughout this time, I'm drinking too much. I am depressed, suicidal, making really antagonistic, shitty art, and just like trying to figure stuff out. And I forget what it was exactly, but Marion and I were having a conversation. This must have been in like 2016 or something. And she like said something about like queer people, like gender queer people. And I was like, well, like, like maybe it's actually like this. It's like, not like she was being ignorant or anything. It's just like, I felt differently. So I could like say, it's not that way, it's this way. And like we were like talking about it for a while, and then she said something like, well, maybe we should just like stay out of it, and like it's like, we're not genderqueer, so we shouldn't have an opinion or whatever. And I was just like sitting there like, and I was like, and I blurted out like, probably a little bit angry, just like, I'm genderqueer. Like, I'm queer. I'm fucking genderqueer. That's it. Period. Yeah. And that is how I came out to my then GF, Marion. And it's still true to say we've been together ever since. I love that phrase, and I think it's really funny to say it when it doesn't make sense. Yeah, and like not that long after, like she came out as bi, or maybe she came out as bi before, and not that long after I came out as bi. But I think for the both of us, like we had a lot of internalized homophobia and transphobia and issues to like sort through before we could become the people that we are today, which is like very much like everyone's favorite queer couple. Not to put words in your mouth, but that is what we are. And yeah, it was like a lot longer until I realized that I was non-binary. It was like, not a lot longer, geez, like 2 years or 1 year or something like that. But like as far as trans people, as far as like my awareness of trans people, it's like when I was growing up, I did not know about trans people at all. I think probably I learned about trans people at the age of like 19 or 20 when I was learning about it on Tumblr, learning about them on Tumblr, like it as in like gender queerness. And even then, I didn't really know about non-binary people, or it was like such an ancillary aspect to the gender enigma that is me, that I didn't really like learn about it, or I didn't know about it until like I met a bunch of non-binary people, and I met them through Marion. Marion's photography connected me to a bunch of non-binary people who I met, and I was like, whoa, I see what you're doing here. And yeah, and it wasn't that long after that. It wasn't that long after meeting these people and getting to know them that I was like, yeah, I'm non-binary. And now I'm non-binary. I use they, them pronouns. My name is Kirk. Yeah. And that, I think that was a huge turning point for me, of course. And like on this channel, it's like this channel has been sort of like a documentation of what it's been like for me to unravel my identity after I figured out that I was non-binary. And yeah, it's been like a adventure. It really has been so wild to learn this. The last couple years, I quit my job with that company, the company that was treating people like shit, and I hated. And we got married. Marion and I got married last year, a little over a year ago, and I don't know, man. Like, what do I say about the last couple of years? I feel like I'm at the very beginning of a whole other story, a whole other experience. I feel like, okay, here we go. So like all of that time I was drinking, like every single day, every single time I've been in New York, I was drinking. And usually like every single day. Like when I say that I drank a lot, I mean that I drank a lot every single day. And in the past couple of years, it's been less so, or like less, the volume has gone way down. The incidences of extreme binge drinking have gone way down. And I'm happy about that. Last November, though, there was a moment when I tried to figure out what was the last time I went more than 3 days without drinking. And I couldn't do it. I could not figure out why or when the last time was. Like literally ever. Not even like going back to college. I couldn't figure it out. And that means it's been like 10 years of drinking almost every single day. I was like, this has to stop. So I talked to Marion and I told her that I wanted to quit drinking. And she was like, yeah, okay, let's do it. So we stopped drinking. We no longer drink, which is to say, yeah, we don't drink anymore. And in full honesty, because I feel like I have to be extremely honest with you, that doesn't mean I don't drink at all. And I know that's kind of confusing. I tell people that I'm sober. I tell everyone I meet that I'm sober. I mean, not literally, but like if they ask or whatever. But like during pandemic, especially during like shelter in place, I've drank a couple times. I've had a couple drinks. I've had a couple glasses of wine. You know, it's like I really was like entirely, completely sober from alcohol from November to like April, and that I think was super, super necessary and super important. And now, like, I don't know, like we have like a drink like once a month, you know, if that, and like I don't want to drink anymore. It used to be like here's another story. Just so out of order, whatever. In college, I was in my parents' place over Christmas, I think, or summer, and I was just like stealing their alcohol and drinking alone in my room with chips and salsa. Chips and salsa is my favorite thing to eat, or it was when I was drinking alone in my room in my parents' house. And I like got so drunk, and I woke up and I was like covered in salsa. Not a good look. But yeah, it's like I can't even think about drinking that much anymore. It's like I literally drank last night, and I had 2 beers, and you could not have, for all the money in the world, gotten me to drink more than that. That was way more than enough. I could have stopped at 1.5 easily. Yeah, so it's like, I don't know. Like I did want to take some time during this to talk about like addiction and sobriety. Um, I don't know. I'm not wholly worked out. I don't have everything worked out. I'm not perfect, and I still fall into old habits and bad habits sometimes. But getting alcohol out of my life has been life changing for me, and it doesn't need to be a binary. It doesn't need to be all or nothing. Either you drink alcohol or you don't. That's how I see it. I know that for other people, and there's nothing wrong with this. It's like they just can't drink alcohol at all, and they won't. And that's the way that they have to. That's the way that they can have a healthy relationship with alcohol. And I respect the fuck out of that. Different strokes for different folks. Yeah, I don't know what to say. It's like the last couple years, I've been getting to know myself for the first time. I've been able to, it's like I can move my body now. Like a couple years ago, like I was hanging out with Marion, and she found out that I couldn't lock my knees. Like just that thing where you extend your leg all the way and lock your knee. I couldn't do it. And I've spent so much time like stretching and learning to be comfortable with my body. And part of that has been identity work, and part of that's just been like literally stretching and literally exercising and all of this stuff. And that has been a huge experience for me. And I feel so much more connected to my body, to my emotions. The beginning of the year, I started going to therapy, which has been phenomenal. I started meditating, I started doing yoga, and I really just highly recommend all of those things to anyone. Yeah, and I don't know. I'm trying to find a way to tie this all together, and maybe I can't. Maybe this is just like disambiguated stories about my life, from birth to 30. I don't know. I'm still working on it, still trying to be a better version of me, trying to let go of things that I've held on to for too long. There's a lot of things that I've held on to for a really long time, and they just get in the way. Like, you gotta let go of stuff. I don't know. I am like zonked. And this went on for literally 2 hours longer than I thought it would. I don't know how I thought I would tell stories from 30 years of my life in an hour, but I did. Yeah. So I guess I'm gonna end it there. I live in New York still. I'm non-binary still. Yeah, just sort of like still going, still working through it. But I am dealing with things in a much healthier way, and I'm happy about it. Um, Life isn't perfect. I'm not perfect, but it's all right. I'm happy. I'm very happy. And in general, I feel really good and positive about the future and what my place in it is. Okay. I have to end. I literally cannot talk anymore. I'm so tired. Thank you for listening. I love you all. Take care. Take care of yourselves. Don't I don't know. Don't replicate some of the mistakes that I've made in my life, I guess. Be mindful. Take care of yourselves. Survive. And just do your best.